what Enron and Arthur Andersen, ultimately led to was Sarbanes-Oxley. And when I came back from London, all the experience that I'd had before really was a perfect storm in terms of becoming a Sarbanes-Oxley expert. So the tail end of my career at Price Waterhouse, I was a subject matter expert on Sarbanes-Oxley, and I was on a team of folks with Price Waterhouse trying to figure out what is Price Waterhouse going to do. What is Sarbanes-Oxley, first of all, and what is it that we actually have to do, and working with our clients to help them figure out what they have to do. And my main client at the time was Marathon Oil Company. And so I was working with Marathon, and we had spent collectively between Price Waterhouse and Marathon tens of thousands of man hours figuring out SOX, documenting all of Marathon's accounting policies and procedures, all their business processes. And about halfway through that project, a gentleman by the name of Al Atkins, who was the VP of Finance, came into one of our meetings. Seemed like we were in the same conference room for about 12 hours a day, every day, with whiteboards. And he said, by the way, just so you know, we're going to be outsourcing all of our finance and accounting. And I said, when? And he said, before the end of the year. And that was going to be the year one for SOX, where Marathon was going to make an assertion about their internal controls, and we were going to audit it. And after I picked myself up off the floor and said, you can't do that, that's crazy. The risk that you're taking of having what's called a material weakness in your internal controls is huge. Well, they were Marathon, and they said, this is what we're going to do, so you guys need to get on board. And we understand you need to sign off on what we do and some of the decisions that we make here. So we'd like you to be on the team that travels and evaluates these different outsource providers. So this was 2003 when this was happening, 2003 crossing into 2004. And so I traveled around with this Marathon team looking at IBM. IBM still today has a big outsourcing facility in Tulsa where they outsource finance and accounting for a lot of the large oil companies, including BP, Marathon. We looked at Accenture. Accenture had an outsourcing facility over at Granite Park off of I-10 along the energy corridor. And I was really amazed and impressed by what I had seen. Both of those companies realized that SOX was a big sales obstacle to them during that time. And so they hired the best and the brightest internal controls folks to be on their team. And when I was on the plane flying back from Tulsa to Houston, I sat next to Al. I said, Al, no offense, but I think you're going to have better internal controls if you outsource to IBM than what you guys have. And this was Marathon. So at the time, they were about a $60 billion, integrated oil and gas company. They had SAP. They implemented it. They had Six Sigma black belts. They had, all over the place, process experts. They had a shared services group. I mean, they had done all the stuff that you learn about in business school because they had the money to invest in to do that. And yet, what they realized was somebody who does it all the time and it's their job to be at the best back office can do it even better than Marathon could do it. And Marathon's an oil company, not an accounting company. And to this day, they use IBM. So that's a little bit about my background, but also a segue into what we do at AcctTwo. After I left Price Waterhouse, I was a co-founder of a middle market CPA firm here in Houston called Calvetti, Ferguson, and Wagner. And we worked with, obviously, would have loved to work with Marathon, but our clients were much smaller. And what I saw was, well, if it makes sense for Marathon to outsource this stuff, I see companies that are $3 million in revenue, $50 million in revenue, even companies that are $500 million in revenue struggle to get their books closed on time, struggle to get the management reports that the company really needs to run the business. And of course, audited financial statements are great, but by the time they're done, you're looking at history. You're not looking at you're looking out your rearview window instead of looking out the dashboard driving your car. And so we formed AcctTwo because we believe that there's even greater benefit and even greater need for companies that are small and medium sized to outsource their back office functions, and that's what we do.